My name is Jake Morrison, and I install security systems for a living. Ironic, considering I was about to witness the greatest security breach of my life unfold right in my own home. I pulled into my driveway at 8:30 on a Tuesday evening, van loaded with leftover cable and mounting brackets from a commercial job downtown. The porch light was on, which was unusual since Emily always complained about the electric bill. My best friend Pete's pickup truck sat in our driveway, hood popped open next to Emily's sedan. "Pete's still here," I muttered, grabbing my tool bag. He'd promised to look at Emily's transmission problem after work. Good guy, Pete. Owned Morrison's auto body. Yeah, same last name, no relation, just one of those coincidences that made us buddies in high school. I walked through the front door and immediately knew something was wrong. The living room lamp lay shattered on the hardwood floor, magazines scattered everywhere. Emily sat huddled on the couch. Mascara streaked down her cheeks, clutching a throw pillow like a shield. "Emily? What happened?" She looked up at me with wide, terrified eyes. "Jake, thank goodness you're here. Someone broke in. He tried to..." She dissolved into sobs. My stomach dropped. "Where's Pete?" "Outside. I think he scared the intruder away when he came back from getting tools from his truck." Pete appeared in the doorway, grease-stained hands raised like he was surrendering. "Jake, man, I don't know what happened. I was out getting my socket wrench set, heard Emily screaming, came running in and found her like this." Emily's sobs intensified. "It was horrible, Jake. This man in a ski mask, he grabbed me, pushed me down, said terrible things." I knelt beside her, my mind racing. "Did you call the police?" "I was waiting for you," she whispered. "I was so scared." Something felt off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Emily was shaking, genuinely terrified, but there was something theatrical about her performance. Maybe shock does that to people. "We need to call this in," I said, reaching for my phone. "Wait," Emily grabbed my arm. "What if he comes back?" "That's what the police are for, Em." While I dialed, I noticed Pete examining the broken lamp with the careful attention he usually reserved for damaged car parts. His expression was troubled, like he was trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. 911, what's your emergency?" "This is Jake Morrison at 1247 Oak Street. My wife was attacked during a home invasion." The dispatcher was professional and calm, promising units within 10 minutes. I hung up and looked around the room more carefully. The coffee table was overturned. Emily's purse contents spilled across the floor, but her jewelry box on the side table sat untouched. Strange priorities for a burglar. "Emily, did he take anything?" She shook her head. "I don't think so. Pete showed up before he could." Pete was still studying the scene, his mechanic's eye for detail working overtime. "Jake, can I talk to you for a second?" We stepped into the kitchen. Pete kept his voice low. "Something's not right here, buddy." "What do you mean?" "Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I was only outside for maybe 3 minutes, getting my tools. When I left, Emily was fine, watching TV. When I came back, all this chaos, but I never saw anyone leave. No car speeding away, no footsteps, nothing. Maybe the guy went out the back? Maybe. Pete didn't sound convinced. But Jake, that lamp, the way it broke, looks like it was thrown from the couch toward the wall, not knocked over in a struggle. Before I could respond, red and blue lights flashed through the kitchen window. The police had arrived. 2 officers entered, a veteran with gray temples and a younger woman who looked like she'd stepped off a recruitment poster. They separated us immediately, standard procedure. The older cop, Detective McNally according to his badge, took Emily's statement in the living room while his partner questioned Pete and me in the kitchen. Emily's story was detailed and consistent. Masked intruder, medium height, dark clothing, grabbed her when she answered what she thought was Pete knocking on the door. She'd fought back, screaming, until Pete's return scared the attacker away. "Mrs. Morrison," McNally was saying, "you mentioned the attacker said things to you. Can you be more specific?" Emily's voice dropped to a whisper. "He said he'd been watching me, that he knew when I was alone." I felt sick. The idea of some creep stalking my wife made me want to punch something. "We'll dust for prints," McNally told us. "Check the neighborhood for witnesses. You folks might want to stay somewhere else tonight." "We'll be fine," Emily said quickly. "Jake installs security systems. Our house is probably safer than most." After the police left, Pete helped me clean up the broken glass. Emily had gone upstairs to shower and change clothes. "Jake," Pete said quietly, "I've been thinking about the timeline." What about it? When I went to get my tools, Emily was sitting right there on that couch, watching some reality show, laughing at it even. She seemed completely normal. Shock affects people differently, Pete. Yeah, but 3 minutes? That's barely enough time for what she described to happen. I wanted to defend my wife, but Pete's observations nagged at me. He had an eye for details that didn't add up, came with the territory of investigating accident scenes for insurance companies. Look, I'm probably wrong, Pete continued. Trauma messes with memory. But Jake, be careful, okay? Something about this whole thing feels staged. After Pete left, I found myself alone in the living room, staring at the spot where the lamp had broken. Emily was still upstairs, water running in the shower. I walked over to examine the glass fragments more closely. Pete was right. The pattern suggested the lamp had been thrown, not knocked over in a struggle. And there was something else. A small piece of fabric caught on the coffee table's edge. Dark blue cotton, like from a work shirt. Pete had been wearing a light gray t-shirt tonight. I pocketed the fabric and went to check something that had been bothering me. In my line of work, you develop paranoid habits. I'd installed a small, nearly invisible security camera in the living room 6 months ago after a rash of neighborhood break-ins. Emily didn't know about it. She thought surveillance in your own home was creepy. The camera was motion-activated, with footage stored on a hidden server in my workshop. If there really had been an intruder, I'd have it on video. I slipped out to the detached garage where I kept my workshop and server equipment. The camera had indeed been triggered tonight. 3 separate recordings between 8:15 and 8:25. I opened the first file. The timestamp showed 8:16. Emily sat on the couch, watching television, exactly as Pete had described. She looked relaxed, even amused by whatever show was playing. The second file started at 8:19. Emily was alone in the room, but now she was moving with purpose. She walked to the lamp, picked it up, and hurled it against the wall. Then she overturned the coffee table, dumped her purse contents on the floor, and messed up her hair. The third file was the most damning. Emily pulled something from her pocket, looked like gloves, and stuffed them behind the couch cushions. Then she positioned herself on the floor, practiced a few different poses like she was rehearsing, and finally settled on one that looked appropriately victimized. The recording ended when Pete burst through the front door. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. My wife had staged the entire thing. But why? And why implicate Pete? The answer hit me like a wrench to the gut. Emily had been distant lately, working late, taking mysterious phone calls. I'd attributed it to stress from her interior design business, but now she was having an affair, and somehow she needed Pete out of the picture. I copied the files to a secure drive and went back into the house. Emily was in bed, claiming exhaustion from her ordeal. I lay beside her, listening to her breathing, wondering how long she'd been planning this. Jake? Her voice was soft in the darkness. Yeah? I'm scared he might come back. Don't worry, I said. I'll protect you. But who was going to protect Pete from what Emily had planned next? The next morning, Emily was gone when I woke up. A note on the kitchen counter explained she'd gone to stay with her sister downtown, needed space to process the trauma. Convenient. I called Pete. We need to talk. About last night? Jake, I've been thinking. Not over the phone. Meet me at Murphy's Diner in 20 minutes. Murphy's was the kind of place where truckers and construction workers grabbed coffee before dawn shifts. Cracked vinyl booths, fluorescent lighting that made everyone look sick, and coffee strong enough to dissolve paint. Perfect for a conversation you didn't want overheard. Pete was already there when I arrived, hunched over a cup that had seen better days. He looked like he hadn't slept. You were right, I said, sliding into the booth across from him. The whole thing was staged. His eyes widened. How do you know? I pulled out my phone and showed him the security footage. Pete watched in stunned silence as Emily performed her one-woman show. That lying... Pete caught himself, glanced around the diner. Jake, I'm sorry, man. I know she's your wife, but this is seriously messed up. Why would she do this, Pete? What's the end game? Pete stirred his coffee, thinking. Maybe she's trying to get you to throw me out of your life, jealous of our friendship? Or maybe she's covering for something else, someone else. The possibility hung between us like smoke. We both knew Emily had been acting strange lately, but I'd been too busy with work to pay attention. There's something else, I said. I found this caught on the coffee table. I showed him the piece of blue fabric. Pete examined it. This isn't from anything I was wearing. But Jake, it looks like it came from a work shirt. Mechanic's shirt, maybe, or maintenance uniform. You think she planted it? I think your wife is smarter than we gave her credit for. My phone buzzed. Text message from Emily. Police want to ask more questions. Can you meet us at the station at 2 p.m.? I showed Pete the message. His face went pale. They're going to arrest me, aren't they? Not if I can help it. We spent the next hour planning. Pete would go to the police station as requested, but I'd be there too with the security footage. Emily might be a good actress, but video doesn't lie. At 1:30, I was sitting in the police station lobby when Emily arrived with a man I didn't recognize. Tall, expensive suit, perfectly styled hair that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. He had his hand on Emily's lower back in a way that made my teeth clench. Jake, Emily seemed surprised to see me. What are you doing here? Supporting Pete. You remember Pete, right? My best friend who you're trying to frame. The man in the expensive suit stepped forward. I'm Grant Whitmore, Mrs. Morrison's attorney. I think it would be best if you didn't interfere with police business. Attorney? I looked at Emily. Since when do you have an attorney? Since I realized how serious this situation is, Emily said. Grant thinks there might be grounds for a civil suit against Pete for emotional distress. Grant Whitmore. The name was familiar. I'd seen it on real estate signs around the wealthy part of town. So Emily had upgraded from a security installer to a lawyer who probably made more in a month than I made in a year. Interesting timing, I said. How long have you two known each other? Emily's cheeks flushed. Grant's firm handled the lease on my design studio. This is purely professional. The way Grant's eyes lingered on Emily suggested their relationship was anything but professional. Detective McNally appeared in the lobby. Mrs. Morrison, we're ready for you. Actually, I said, standing up, I have something you need to see first. I handed McNally the flash drive containing the security footage. This is from a camera in my living room. It shows exactly what happened last night. Emily went white. Grant grabbed her arm, whispered something urgent in her ear. Jake, Emily's voice was shaky. What are you talking about? We don't have cameras inside the house. Surprise. McNally looked between us, clearly sensing the domestic drama brewing. Mr. Morrison, I'll need to verify this footage with our tech team. Mrs. Morrison, why don't we postpone this interview until we've had a chance to review all available evidence? As we left the station, Grant pulled Emily aside for a heated, whispered conversation. I caught fragments. Told you to check for cameras, and need to control the narrative. Pete met me in the parking lot. How'd it go? Better than expected. Worse than hoped. I filled him in on Grant Whitmore's sudden appearance and obvious relationship with Emily. So she's cheating, Pete said. But why drag me into it? Why not just ask for a divorce? Because a divorce means splitting assets. But if she can paint me as unstable, maybe even complicit in a crime, she might get everything. That's a hell of a long game. Emily always was a planner. We were interrupted by the sound of expensive heels clicking across asphalt. Emily approached alone. Grant was on his phone by a black BMW that probably cost more than my house. Jake, we need to talk. I think we're past talking, Em. Please, 5 minutes. Pete squeezed my shoulder. I'll wait in the truck. Emily waited until Pete was out of earshot. Jake, I know how this looks. It looks like you faked a home invasion to frame my best friend while you're sleeping with your lawyer. It's not what you think. Really? Because what I think is that you've been planning this for months. The late nights, the mysterious phone calls, the sudden need for legal representation. How long have you been seeing Grant? Emily's composure cracked. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. The business is failing, Jake. I owe money to people who don't accept late payments. So you decided to destroy Pete's life? I panicked. Grant said if we could prove you were associating with dangerous people, it would help in the divorce proceedings. Pete runs an auto body shop, Emily. He's not dangerous. But his customers are. Some of them have records, Jake. Grant did research. The pieces were falling into place. Emily and Grant had cooked up a scheme to paint Pete as a criminal, me as someone with poor judgment, and Emily as the innocent victim deserving of sympathy and financial compensation. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to go back to the police and recant your statement. You're going to admit you made a mistake, that you were confused, that there was no intruder. I can't do that. Then I released the security footage to everyone. Your clients, your friends, your mother. Everyone gets to see your little performance. Emily's eyes flashed with anger. You wouldn't dare. Try me. Grant finished his phone call and approached us. Is there a problem here? No problem, I said. Emily was just explaining how she's going to fix the mess she made. Grant's smile was cold. Mr. Morrison, I think you're misunderstanding the situation. Your wife is the victim here, and frankly, your aggressive behavior right now is concerning." "My aggressive behavior?" Confronting a trauma victim, making threats, trying to intimidate her into changing her story, it paints a picture of a controlling, possibly abusive husband. I realized Grant was recording our conversation on his phone. Every word I'd said could be twisted to support their narrative. "Clever," I said, "but not clever enough." I walked away before I said something that would really give them ammunition. Pete was waiting in his truck, engine running. "We need to get ahead of this," I told him. "They're playing a bigger game than we thought." "What do you mean?" "Emily's not just cheating, she's broke, and Grant isn't just her lover, he's her business partner in destroying us." As we drove away, I saw Grant and Emily in deep conversation beside his BMW. Emily was crying, but these weren't the tears of a victim. These were the tears of someone whose carefully laid plans were falling apart. The war was just beginning. That evening, I sat in my workshop, staring at multiple computer screens like some kind of discount private investigator. The advantage of installing security systems for a living is that you learn a lot about surveillance, background checks, and digital forensics. The disadvantage is that you know exactly how much trouble you can get into using those skills. I started with Grant Whitmore. Public records showed he'd been married twice, both ending in messy divorces where his ex-wives accused him of financial manipulation. His law practice specialized in real estate and divorce cases, with a particular talent for hiding assets during proceedings. Emily's design business was indeed in trouble. She owed money to suppliers, had 3 outstanding lawsuits from clients claiming shoddy work, and hadn't paid taxes in 18 months. Her business account had been overdrawn for 6 weeks. But here's where it got interesting. Grant had been making regular deposits into Emily's personal account for the past 4 months. Not large amounts, $500 here, $1,000 there, but consistent, like he was keeping her afloat while they planned something bigger. I dug deeper into Grant's business dealings. His real estate company had been buying up properties in our neighborhood, including the house 2 doors down from ours. He was gentrifying the area, and our house, which Emily and I had renovated over 5 years, would be worth significantly more if he could acquire it. The plan was becoming clear. Emily gets everything in the divorce, sells to Grant at below market value as a thank you for his help, and they both profit while I'm left with nothing. My phone rang. Pete. "Jake, we've got a problem. Someone called the state licensing board about my shop. Anonymous tip claiming I'm running stolen car parts through the business." "When?" "This afternoon. They're sending an inspector tomorrow." Grant and Emily weren't wasting time. Discredit Pete, make me look like someone who associates with criminals, and strengthen Emily's position as the innocent victim. "Pete, how clean are your books?" "Spotless. I've been paranoid about paperwork since I opened. But Jake, even a clean inspection takes time. I'll have to shut down for at least 2 days, maybe more. I've got customers depending on me." "This is my fault. I should have seen this coming." "No, this is Emily's fault, and her boyfriend's. Question is, what are we going to do about it?" I looked at the information I'd gathered on Grant. "I have some ideas." The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to the coffee shop across from Grant's law office. I needed to understand his routine, his weaknesses, his pressure points. Grant arrived at 9:30 in his BMW, talking loudly on his phone about some real estate deal. He had the kind of voice that carried, the kind that assumed everyone wanted to hear his business. "Told you. The Morrison property will be available within 60 days. Yes, I'm handling the divorce personally. Trust me, she'll sell to us at whatever price we name." I recorded every word. At lunch, Grant met Emily at an upscale restaurant downtown. They sat at a corner table, heads close together, looking like any other couple planning their future. I took photos from across the street, zooming in on their body language, their obvious intimacy. But the real breakthrough came when I followed Grant back to his office. He parked in the building's garage, and I noticed something interesting about his BMW. The rear bumper had a small dent and scratch marks that looked fresh. I called a contact from my security installation days, a guy who worked for an insurance company investigating accident claims. "Danny, it's Jake Morrison. I need a favor." "Jake, haven't heard from you in months. What's up?" "I need you to run a license plate, see if there are any recent accident reports or insurance claims." I gave him Grant's plate number. "Give me 20 minutes. When Danny called back, he was excited. "Your boy Grant had a hit-and-run incident 3 weeks ago. Rear-ended someone at a traffic light and took off. Victim got his plate number, filed a police report. Insurance company is looking for him." "Has he been contacted?" "Not yet. Case is still working its way through the system." Perfect. Grant thought he'd gotten away with something, but he was about to learn that actions have consequences. That afternoon, I visited the victim of Grant's hit and run, an elderly woman named Mrs. Chen, who'd been driving home from her grandson's school when Grant slammed into her car and drove away. He never even stopped, she told me. Just backed up and drove around me like I wasn't even there. Mrs. Chen, what if I told you I know who hit you? Her eyes lit up. You know this person? I showed her Grant's photo from his law firm's website. She nodded immediately. That's him? I'm sure of it. Would you be willing to identify him to the police? Of course, but they told me it might take months to find him. I think we can speed up that process. I helped Mrs. Chen contact the investigating officer and provided Grant's information. Within 2 hours, there was a warrant out for Grant's arrest. But I wasn't done. I'd noticed that Grant's law office was in an older building with outdated security, the kind of place where someone with my skills could theoretically access the building's camera system and review footage from recent weeks. Theoretically. What I found was better than I'd hoped. Grant's office cameras had captured several meetings between him and Emily, including one from 2 months ago where Emily was clearly distressed, crying, while Grant comforted her with more than professional interest. But the real prize was a recording from last week, Grant and Emily planning the fake home invasion in detail. Emily worried about Pete's timing, Grant assuring her they could work around it. Grant coaching Emily on her story, reminding her to mention being watched to make it sound more predatory. I had everything I needed to destroy them both. That evening, I got a call from Detective McNally. Mr. Morrison, we've reviewed your security footage. We need to speak with your wife again. She's staying with her sister. We tried there. No one's seen her since yesterday. Emily was running, or hiding. Either way, she knew the game was up. Detective, there's something else you should know about Grant Whitmore. I told him about the hit-and-run warrant. McNally was quiet for a long moment. Mr. Morrison, are you conducting your own investigation into this matter? I'm just a concerned husband looking for answers. Uh-huh. Well, your concerned husband routine just helped us close a 3-week-old hit-and-run case. Grant Whitmore was arrested an hour ago. What about Emily? We'll find her, and when we do, she's got a lot of explaining to do. After I hung up, I felt a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Emily had betrayed me, tried to destroy Pete, and nearly gotten away with it. But she was still the woman I'd married, the woman I'd loved. That feeling lasted until I checked my bank accounts and discovered she'd emptied our joint savings account that morning. Now I was just angry. Emily surfaced 3 days later, but not in the way I expected. She held a press conference. I was having coffee with Pete, discussing the insurance investigator's report that had cleared his shop of any wrongdoing, when my phone started buzzing with calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Jake Morrison, this is Channel 7 News. We'd like to get your response to your wife's allegations. What allegations? You haven't seen the press conference? I hung up and immediately searched online. There it was, streaming live from the steps of the courthouse. Emily, flanked by a new lawyer and a woman I recognized as her business partner, Miranda. My husband has been psychologically abusive for years, Emily was saying, her voice trembling with practiced emotion. When I finally found the courage to seek help, he began a campaign of intimidation and harassment designed to silence me. The reporter asked about the home invasion report. I was confused, traumatized, Emily replied. My husband convinced me to blame his friend Pete because he was paranoid about Pete's criminal associations. When I tried to tell the truth, Jake threatened to destroy my reputation and my business. It was masterful. She'd taken every piece of evidence against her and flipped it, making herself the victim and me, the villain. Furthermore, Emily continued, I've discovered that my husband has been conducting illegal surveillance, not just of me, but of my attorney, Mr. Whitmore. He's been stalking us, taking photographs, accessing private security systems. I fear for my safety. Miranda stepped forward. We have evidence that Mr. Morrison has been systematically destroying Emily's business relationships, spreading false rumors, and engaging in what can only be described as a harassment campaign. Pete was staring at the screen in disbelief. She's good. I'll give her that. My phone rang again. This time it was Detective McNally. Mr. Morrison, I need you to come to the station, now. Am I under arrest? Not yet, but we need to discuss some allegations that have been made. I arrived at the police station to find a crowd of reporters waiting. Emily's press conference had worked. She'd gotten ahead of the story and painted me as the aggressor. McNally led me to an interview room where another detective was waiting, along with a woman in a business suit who introduced herself as a prosecutor. Mr. Morrison, the prosecutor began, we've received serious allegations about your conduct during this investigation. You mean my investigation into my wife's lies? We mean your alleged harassment, stalking, and illegal surveillance of Mrs. Morrison and Mr. Whitmore. They had photos of me following Grant, recordings of me talking to Mrs. Chen, evidence of someone accessing Grant's building security system. Emily and her team had been busy. "Let me get this straight," I said. "My wife fakes a crime, frames my best friend, empties our bank accounts, and I'm the one being investigated." "Your wife has recanted her statement," McNally said. "She admits there was no home invasion. She says she was confused and traumatized and that you pressured her into making false accusations against Pete." "That's not what happened." "Then explain the surveillance footage from your house." I realized they'd turned my own evidence against me. The security footage showed Emily staging the break-in, but without context, it could be interpreted as Emily being coerced by an abusive husband. "I want a lawyer," I said. The prosecutor smiled. "That's probably wise." I spent the next 2 hours in that interview room, saying nothing while they presented their case. Emily had been thorough. She'd painted a picture of a controlling husband who'd forced her to participate in framing Pete, then turned on her when she tried to tell the truth. The beautiful thing about her new story was that it contained just enough truth to be believable. Yes, I had conducted surveillance. Yes, I had pressured her to change her story. Yes, I had threatened to destroy her reputation. But the context was everything, and Emily controlled the narrative now. When I finally left the station, the reporters were waiting. "Mr. Morrison, how do you respond to your wife's allegations?" "Mr. Morrison, are you seeking help for anger management? Is it true you've been stalking your wife's attorney?" I pushed through the crowd without comment, but the damage was done. By evening, I was the lead story on every local news channel. "Local man accused of domestic abuse and stalking." Pete called that night. "Jake, maybe you should lay low for a while. Let this blow over." "It's not going to blow over, Pete. She's playing for keeps." "What do you mean?" "I mean, she's not just trying to win the divorce. She's trying to destroy me completely. Make me unemployable, friendless, maybe even put me in prison." Why would she go that far? I'd been thinking about that. Because I know too much. I know about Grant's hit and run, their financial schemes, the real reason behind the fake home invasion. As long as I'm free and credible, I'm a threat. "So what are you going to do?" "I'm going to give her what she wants." "Jake, don't do anything stupid." "I'm not going to hurt anyone, Pete, but I'm done playing defense." The next morning, I called Emily's new lawyer and requested a meeting. We met at his office downtown, a sterile place that smelled like expensive leather and broken dreams. "Mr. Morrison," the lawyer said, "my client is prepared to be reasonable, but she needs assurances about her safety." "What kind of assurances?" "A restraining order. No contact with Mrs. Morrison or her associates. And we need you to stop the harassment campaign." "In exchange for?" "A fair divorce settlement. Mrs. Morrison keeps the house and her business. You keep your tools and your truck." It was highway robbery, but I nodded thoughtfully. "I'll need time to consider." 24 hours. I left the meeting and drove straight to Miranda's office. Emily's business partner was the weak link in their chain, the one person who might crack under pressure. Miranda's interior design studio was in the trendy part of downtown, all glass and chrome and furniture that looked uncomfortable. Miranda herself was a sharp-featured woman in her 30s who dressed like she was auditioning for a reality show. "Jake," she seemed surprised to see me. "I don't think we should be talking." "Just 5 minutes, Miranda. I think you deserve to know what Emily's really planning." She hesitated, then let me in. "Emily's going to throw you under the bus," I said without preamble. "What are you talking about?" "The business is bankrupt, Miranda. Emily's been stealing from client accounts to pay her personal debts. When this all comes out in the divorce proceedings, guess who's going to be blamed for the missing money?" Miranda's face went pale. "That's not... Emily wouldn't..." "Check the books, Miranda. Really check them. See where the money's been going." I left her with that thought and drove home. My house felt empty now, stripped of Emily's presence, but still haunted by her betrayal. That evening, Miranda called. "Jake, we need to talk." We met at a 24-hour diner on the outskirts of town, the kind of place where nobody asked questions and the coffee was strong enough to wake the sleeping. "You were right," Miranda said without preamble. "Emily's been embezzling. Thousands of dollars, maybe tens of thousands." "How long have you known?" "I suspected for months, but I trusted her. We were friends, partners. I thought..." She shook her head. "I was an idiot." "What are you going to do about it?" "What can I do? If this comes out, it destroys both of us. The business, our reputations, everything. Unless you get ahead of it." Miranda looked at me suspiciously. "What do you mean?" "Emily's planning to blame you for the missing money. But what if you beat her to it? What if you're the whistleblower instead of the scapegoat? You want me to betray Emily. I want you to tell the truth. Emily's been using both of us, Miranda. Me as the abusive husband, you as the incompetent partner. She's going to walk away from this with everything while we're left holding the bag. Miranda was quiet for a long time, stirring her coffee and thinking. What would I have to do? Tell the police about the embezzlement, show them the books, explain how Emily's been manipulating the situation. And in exchange? I'll make sure you're protected. Emily goes down, but you're the victim who came forward, not the accomplice who got caught. Miranda nodded slowly. Okay, but Jake, if you're lying to me, if this is some kind of setup... Miranda, we're both victims here. The only way we survive is if we work together. The next morning, Miranda walked into the police station with a box of financial records and a story that would unravel Emily's carefully constructed narrative. By afternoon, Emily was under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and filing false police reports. The press conference this time was very different. Emily made bail within 6 hours, but the damage was done. The local news had pivoted from abused wife seeks justice to local woman charged with embezzlement and false reporting. The court of public opinion, always eager for a new villain, turned on Emily with the same enthusiasm they'd shown in supporting her. I was in my workshop when Pete arrived with a 6-pack of beer and a grin I hadn't seen in weeks. Jake, you magnificent bastard, did you see Channel 7's follow-up story? I hadn't. I'd been avoiding the news, trying to process the fact that my marriage was truly over and my wife was facing serious criminal charges. Pete pulled out his phone and played the video. A reporter was standing outside Emily's design studio, which had a closed indefinitely sign in the window. Sources close to the investigation tell us that Emily Morrison may have embezzled over $40,000 from client accounts to fund a lifestyle she couldn't afford. Her business partner, Miranda Hayes, discovered the theft and cooperated with authorities. Miranda's really selling it, Pete observed. She's protecting herself. Smart move? What about Grant? Still in jail on the hit-and-run charges. Turns out he has a pattern of leaving accident scenes. His lawyer's trying to work out a plea deal. Pete opened 2 beers and handed me one. So what now? Now I try to rebuild my life. Emily's lawyer called me, Pete said. Wanted to know if I'd be willing to testify about your aggressive behavior during this whole thing. What did you tell him? I told him to go to hell. But Jake, they're still trying to paint you as the bad guy. Emily's claiming she only embezzled the money because you were financially controlling, that she was desperate. Let them try. The evidence speaks for itself. But even as I said it, I knew Emily wasn't finished. She was cornered now, facing prison time, and cornered animals were dangerous. I found out how dangerous 2 days later. I was at a client's house installing a new security system when my phone exploded with notifications. Text messages, missed calls, voicemails, all from numbers I didn't recognize. The first voicemail was from a reporter. Mr. Morrison, we'd like your comment on the video that's been released. The second was from my boss. Jake, you need to call me immediately. There's a situation. The third was from Pete. Jake, don't go online. Don't look at anything. Just call me. Of course, I immediately went online. Emily had released a video on social media. It was grainy, clearly shot with a hidden phone camera, and it showed me in what appeared to be a compromising situation with Miranda at the diner where we'd met to discuss her cooperation with the police. The video was edited to remove context, making our conversation look like a romantic encounter. Emily had added a caption. While I was struggling with trauma and abuse, my husband was carrying on an affair with my business partner. They conspired together to frame me for crimes I was forced to commit out of desperation. The video had been shared thousands of times in just a few hours. I called Pete immediately. It's bad, Jake. Really bad. How bad? Your boss already called. You're suspended pending investigation. The local news wants a statement. And Jake, there are people outside your house. I drove home to find a small crowd of protesters on my lawn. Someone had made signs. Jake Morrison is a liar, and justice for Emily. A news van was parked across the street. I parked in my garage and entered through the back door, but they saw me. The shouting started immediately. How does it feel to destroy an innocent woman? Are you proud of yourself? Why don't you admit what you did? I closed the blinds and tried to think. Emily had played her final card, and it was a good one. The video, while misleading, would be enough to muddy the waters, make people question my motives and Miranda's testimony. My phone rang. Miranda. Jake, I'm so sorry. I had no idea she was recording us. Are you okay? No, I'm not okay. My phone hasn't stopped ringing. People are calling me a homewrecker, a liar, worse things. Jake, I can't do this. I can't testify. Miranda, if you back out now, Emily wins. She's already won. Look what she's done to us. Miranda hung up, and I knew I'd lost her. Emily had successfully intimidated her key witness. But Emily had made one mistake. In her desperation to destroy me, she'd revealed something important. She'd been planning this for longer than anyone realized. The hidden camera at the diner meant she'd been following me, documenting my movements, looking for opportunities to create compromising footage, which meant there might be other recordings. I spent the next 2 hours going through Emily's belongings, the things she'd left behind when she moved out. In her home office, hidden behind a row of design books, I found a small digital recorder. The device contained dozens of files dating back months. Emily had been recording conversations with Grant, with Miranda, with me. She'd been building a library of material she could use to manipulate the narrative. Most of the recordings were mundane, but a few were explosive. Emily and Grant, 6 weeks before the fake home invasion, discussing how to get rid of Jake without splitting assets. Emily and Miranda, talking about embezzling client funds, with Emily clearly the instigator. Emily alone, practicing her victim testimony, rehearsing different versions of her story. And the crown jewel, Emily and Grant, recorded just 3 days ago, discussing how to destroy Jake's credibility permanently through the release of the diner video and false allegations of an affair. I had everything I needed to clear my name and put Emily away for a long time. But first, I had to survive the mob outside my house. I called Detective McNally. Detective, it's Jake Morrison. I have new evidence in the Emily Morrison case. Mr. Morrison, you need to be very careful about any contact with this case. Your wife's attorney has filed harassment charges. Just listen to this. I played him the recording of Emily and Grant discussing their plan to frame me. McNally was quiet for a long moment. Where did you get this? Emily left a digital recorder in our house. I found it among her belongings. Mr. Morrison, I need you to bring that device to the station immediately. And Jake, use the back entrance. An hour later, I was sitting in the same interview room where they'd interrogated me days earlier. But this time, the prosecutor looked troubled rather than confident. Mr. Morrison, if these recordings are authentic, they change everything. They're authentic. You can verify the timestamps, check the voice patterns, whatever you need to do. The prosecutor nodded to McNally, who left the room and returned with Emily's lawyer. Counselor, you need to hear this. They played the recording of Emily and Grant planning to destroy my reputation. Emily's lawyer went pale. I need to speak with my client immediately. Your client is about to be charged with additional crimes, the prosecutor said. Conspiracy, harassment, perjury. The list is getting longer. Emily's lawyer left without another word. McNally turned to me. Jake, I owe you an apology. We should have been more thorough in our initial investigation. You believed a victim's story. That's what you're supposed to do. Still, we let her manipulate the system. That's on us. 2 hours later, Emily was arrested again, this time on multiple felony charges. The video she'd released was revealed as part of a coordinated harassment campaign. Miranda, relieved to be vindicated, agreed to testify again. Grant, facing his own legal troubles, decided to cooperate with prosecutors rather than risk additional charges. The protesters outside my house melted away as quickly as they'd appeared. The news cycle moved on to the next scandal, the next villain, the next victim. I was alone in my house, surrounded by the wreckage of my marriage and the debris of Emily's schemes. But I was free. Pete came by that evening with pizza and beer. We sat in my living room, the same room where Emily had staged her fake attack, and watched the sunset through windows that no longer needed their blinds drawn. So what now? Pete asked. Now I figure out how to move forward. Any regrets? I thought about it. Emily was facing years in prison. Grant's legal career was over. Miranda would probably have to close the design studio and start over somewhere else. No, I said finally. They made their choices. They could have just asked for a divorce, worked out a fair settlement, gone their separate ways. Instead, they chose to lie, cheat, steal, and try to destroy innocent people. Emily always did think she was smarter than everyone else. She was smart, just not as smart as she thought. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. This isn't over, Jake. You'll pay for what you've done to me. I showed the message to Pete, who shook his head. Even now, she thinks she's the victim. Let her think that. The courts will set her straight. I blocked the number and deleted the message. Emily Morrison was no longer my problem. I had a life to rebuild, a business to restore, friendships to repair. It would take time, but I had something Emily never understood. The truth was on my side, and the truth has a way of winning in the end. Outside, the sun disappeared behind the trees, and darkness settled over the neighborhood. But for the first time in months, I wasn't afraid of what tomorrow might bring. The game was over, and I had won.